Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening. Welcome
Yeah,
to today's.
thank you. Hear you loud and clear.
Oh, great. I was wondering if you all could hear me, but thank God you can all hear me. So, welcome to this special episode of the How I Aced My IELTS Examination at First Attempt. So, today I have here in the room Oluwaseun. She joined the IELTS online classes with Banke, and she has written IELTS examination and aced it at first attempt. So I invited her over to come share with us on how she achieved that feat. And my desire for you is that if you are yet to write the examination for the first time, you can ace it once and for all, and you can also know that it is possible to ace the examination once and for all, right? So without further ado, Oluwaseun, you have the floor. Could you please unmute so that you can share with us? And I want our fellow classmates to learn from you and
Okay.
get inspired that it's possible to ace the IELTS examination on time. So tell me, how did it all start for you? This all IELTS test preparation.
Well, yes, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, yes. So
Yes, we
I
can.
decided this year to prepare for IELTS, and I had a target. I was planning to write it in February, but I was afraid of the exam, although I started preparing from January. But the plan was to write it in February. But I had this year, so February became March, but eventually in April, I wrote it and it was my first attempt. So I remember a friend, I had a couple of friends, they were like, oh, you want to write IELTS? Sent me different materials, different things to use. Then a friend sent me a link to Banker's class, and I wholeheartedly joined the class because I was like, my plan is to write this exam once, and that's what I want to do. So I joined the class. So when Banker started, she started with listening, reading, then we went to writing and speaking. And for each section of the test, she went through the process of what to expect, the time you're going to spend, the number of questions you're going to spend. For the listening test, she talked about how the breaks and everything you are going to utilize. But I then decided to pay for a private class because right from time I'd never been a writing person. I hated writing letters, anything that had to do with letters. So particularly because of the writing test, I paid very fast. Although I felt like, okay, for listening and reading, I was probably prepared because every time I practiced, I got somewhere between 35 and 40. But when I took the private class Banke, the first the class was for me, it was like she was just helping me to dot my T's and cross my I's. So the remaining issues I had when it came to listening, she helped me to take care of that. Like I remember she told me that okay, the idea is that when you are giving, when you start a section, you're going to be given a pause. You should actually utilize the pause to go through the questions, highlight the keywords questions, and then look through the answers too. highlighting the key words in that answer so that your mind is already prepared for what you're expecting from a question and what you're going to look for in the answer. And then when the audio plays, then you're more focused, and it really helped. I got a 9 in listening. I don't know if it was 40 over 40 or 39, but I know I took the hint she gave me and it helped. So the key is to, for every pause at the beginning when they're introducing the listening section, now you can go to section 1, they give you a pause that you have a few minutes, I think, to look at the questions. So the key is to highlight the key words in that questions. Like if it's starting with maybe usually is information being passed across, maybe someone inquiring about something. So the first question maybe is an address. So you need to listen out for an address. If it's a phone number, you need to listen out for a phone number. Another thing she said is that she shouldn't rush in listening, in trying, okay, because I think I've heard it, then I quickly write. I shouldn't rush, because there are some times that they will say something and then you hear, oh no, not that, then it will be corrected. So the idea is to keep calm and just be focused. Listen very well. I had to press the headphone into my ear because I don't want any distraction. I wanted to hear everything. But I remember in the test, what helped me was that because I underlined the keywords, I knew, okay, when to expect, oh, I'm going to hear the answer now. And then another thing she also said I remember is that listen out for paraphrases, because you might be thinking that because the question says then the direction, and you're like, okay, they're going to tell me direction, and you're waiting for direction. Before you know it, you've already missed the answer. So but if you underline the keyword, you are able to listen for when they use a paraphrase of that keyword. That's for the listening test. I think anyone can pass that listening test. You just have to be focused, pay key attention, as in pay attention very closely, and then be calm. That's another thing. We need to be calm, or else you're just going to miss out things when they play the audio. And also underline keywords and look out for paraphrases. So that's for listening. Then for the reading, I felt I could apprehend things. But when I got to true, false, not giving questions, that was the no for me, because I'm like, I don't understand. Is this true? Is this false? Is this not given? But another way Banke helped me with that part is she told me to underline the keyword and then look for the section in the passage, or look for the part in the passage that follows, or where the information for that question is given. So let's say maybe the question says, is it true that 90% of boys are this, da, 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 da? When you go to the passage, you now look for where that information of the question is in the passage. By the time you find that in the passage, you'll be able to know, okay, is the statement from the question in agreement to what is in the passage, then it will be a true answer. Is the statement in the question contradictory, as in, is it like the opposite of what is in the passage? And that's false. And then in the for the not given, that one is usually tricky. If then what you want to find out for that is the statement in the question. Can you find an answer in the passage, or you don't have enough information? Then that is not given. So the reading is just paying it's also paying attention. Then you also have to underline keywords and look for paraphrases, because what I've learned is that this question, they always paraphrase a lot. So it will also be good to build your vocabulary. There's the time I used to do this, I do crossword puzzles a lot. I don't know if that helps, but there was a time I downloaded an app that had to do like with IQ test. So there was this section that I always like to do. It had to do with understanding words like synonyms. So yes, it would be good to have a lot of synonyms. So maybe maybe reading books, and then when you come across a word, it will be good to look it up. You never know when it will be helpful. That's for true, false, not giving question. Or same also applies for yes, no, not giving questions. And another section Banke took me on was matching headings. That one, I used to pray I don't see it. But for this question, I saw it. But another way Banke also helped is you need to underline. So some, like for those paragraph headings or which paragraph contains, don't be quick to read the paragraph. You know those paragraphs are long. Don't be quick to read that first. What you should do first is read the question. After you read the question, you underline the keywords. And when you've done that, so each statement maybe is just a phrase. Understand what it's saying, and then you now go through the passage. Apart from that, I also learned somewhere that you usually start with the shortest passage. So when you start with that, it can you can identify what is there. Or if usually all these match the headings or which paragraph contains is usually with a range of questions. So maybe there's some other questions that are multiple choice. You can do that first. So by the time you do, you'll have skimmed through the passage looking for the answers for the multiple question. You already have an idea of what is in passage. So by the time you now come back to the paragraph, match the heading paragraph, you already have a brief idea of what is in the passages. So it will help you save time, because some people, because they are trying to look through the passage, looking for the answer, they waste time. And then if you are stuck on a question, move on to the next one so that you don't waste time. So you can come back to the question. Then writing. In fact, the first assessment I did with Banke, I felt like I don't know English. I did so woeful. But with the correction she gave me, I put that in mind. And the question I got was first, the tax one was an informal letter. Write a letter to, like, you just left a job and you move to another city. So in your friend is missing you, or you are missing your friend. So in your letter, write to your friend saying how much you miss her, and then describe the city you are now in. Then also describe your role in your new job, and then make arrangements to invite your friend to come visit you. So the steps, at least writing the introduction, you need to identify, okay, which type of letter am I writing? Is it a formal letter, an informal letter, a semi-formal letter? Like Banker usually says, the informal letter is writing to someone you know, whereas the formal and the informal letter are writing to people you don't know. But for the semi-formal, you know the person a bit to an extent, for you are still respectful for that person. So it's a semi-formal letter. So usually your introduction is the background information you are giving. So write a letter to your friend and blah, blah, blah. So that background information giving before the bullet points, that's usually introduction. So it's from there you get your introduction, and then you need to make sure you address each of those bullet points in a paragraph, so that you can get a good mark in tax achievement. And by the time you do that, what I did to help me with counting the numbers, because I was like, because people had told me you may not have time to count and this and that. So what I did, I looked for the IELTS writing answer script online, and I downloaded it. So I used to use that to practice. In case I can't count the letters, okay, that if I write maybe like 10 lines or 15 lines, I count. So I know that writing, I counted that, okay, for me to make sure I make 150 lines, that means I must have maybe 10 lines remaining or 6 lines remaining. So that was what I did. Then in my essay on that day, on Thursday, I started with task 2 because I was afraid of. And I felt identify what the question is asking of you. On my exam day, the question I got was an opinion essay. And it said, is this attitude to wearing fashionable clothes a positive or a negative development? Give your reasons and state relevant examples. So that day, I was ready to jump. I had to pause that, okay, what I expected to do in this question. So I realized, okay, I need to agree or disagree. And I highlighted the keywords, okay, fashionable clothes, important, positive or negative. That, okay, what does it mean of wearing fashionable clothes? And I had to think of, okay, fashionable clothes, what's another word for fashionable clothes that will make it easier in my head? And I thought of trendy clothes, wearing the latest clothes. Then on my answer script, I wrote agree, disagree, pros, cons. The one I had more options, more things, right? That's why I went with, because I was stuck on one side. Okay, what's the disadvantage? In fact, it got to a point that I felt confused. I had to look back to the question that, okay, this is it. And I did that. And after I did that, I had time to count. I took my time with my tasks because I'm like, it's going to take more marks. So I need to be precise on this. So I counted, made my corrections. By the time they were like 20 minutes more, I just finished my tax 2 and I moved on to my tax 1. But because the tax 1 was a letter, I felt okay. I just imagined a friend and I just started writing and writing. I didn't get to count my tax 1, but I knew that, okay, I had like 6 lines remaining. So I knew, oh, I definitely wrote over 150 words. So that's it for writing. So it's good to practice a lot. I think that helps. So by the time you practice a lot, you already have an idea of, okay, if I get I am an advantage or disadvantage question, I know what to go. And it's also good you have a lot of things to paraphrase with. So in my own question, first, I hardly used the word. I think it was only in the first paragraph I used fashionable clothes. In the other paragraph, I used wearing clothes that are in vogue, wearing trendy clothes, the latest clothes. I just, use 2 minutes that people use to come up with ideas. It runs by very fast. I didn't know seriously. I've been writing for 40 minutes and it felt like I just started writing, but you need to be fast. And another thing I noticed that day, when people were submitting, a lot of people, the tax 1 usually is 2 different papers, 2 different colors, red and black. I don't know if that's constant, but for my own exam, I noticed that for their tax 1, the handwriting was reaching the back all the way to the last line. And then their tax 2, it was just the front. So they spent a lot of time on the tax 1 and couldn't might be good. I've written it only once, I don't know. But I think it would be good to start with your tax 2 because that's even going to take more marks. And then if you are writing a letter, most of us write letters a lot. It will be easy to come up with ideas. You actually have to sit down and think. Then for the speaking, that day I was very nervous because in my head I was saying I want, and I go to the exam and I met a female. So my head started like, oh, this woman. But that day I practiced.
Okay.
Like when I Banke will tell you to, okay, she'll give you a set of questions. Can you hear me?
Yes, I was going to say that when you signed,
did you say something?
I said when you signed up for the paid private class, that how did that class help
Yes.
further? despite the fact that you already knew that the
It
impact was adequate
helped
to even ace
help because it was the
the class.
it was the the funny thing, it was the extra tips you gave me in the private class that really helped actually, because I know just before the exam it was your chart. That was the last thing I read, the chart. I just reminded myself that, okay, for listening, this is what you should do, this is what you should do, this is what you should do. For reading, okay, pay attention to this. For writing, I looked at the templates you sent me, the corrections you made. I looked at that. Okay, speaking was another day.
Yeah.
But I know those were the few things, and it was helpful. I didn't expect I was going to get true and false place again. That was number 1 to 7. I was like, what did I do to the universe? That this true and false again. But I know there are some questions that I erased the answers like 3 times. Like, okay, no, that's not right. I just had to tell myself, calm down. Remember the banker say, what the banker say. And then I finally just wrote an answer, and well, I came out with a 9. So,
Speaking, you were
but the private class, yes, the general class was helpful. Yes, the speaking, that one. I remember the corrections you made. I told myself, okay, you must not go there and all these slangs that we used to say that we think is actually English. You need to avoid that, because I remember audios I sent to you. I used some of those slangs and you corrected me that those weren't English words and I should avoid using them. Then what I also did, I looked online that, okay, for the apart from tips you gave me, I looked online that, okay, for the speaking, what should I expect? What type of questions can I meet? And there's this guy I saw on YouTube, Simon. I think his name is Simon. So he talked about, okay, that for speaking, they can ask you to, that's for part 1. They can ask you to talk about a place, talk about a person, talk about an event. So for each of those questions, I just imagine myself in a scenario that, okay, someone asking me about an object, what will I say? So combining that with the tips you gave me, I had an idea that, okay, they should ask me about an object, what will I say? And what he also said was that it would be good to, that, so depending on what you are asked to talk about, he gave like phrases or templates of words that you could use, that once you've used that, it will show that you have a good comprehension of the English language. And the question I got when I got to part 1, the lady said with the part 1, introduce yourself. I talked, this is who I am. She said, what do you do? I said what I did. And she said, okay. Then she asked other things. What are you? I remember you asked me, part of the questions you sent me was, what are your hobbies? That was the question she asked me. So with the corrections you made and with what I said, I just republished everything, and and in my head I was smiling that Banke will be happy with me. And then for the part 2, the cue card, I was asked to talk about something valuable that is in the family, that is important. And then for the bullet points, I'm to say what the object is, what is to describe it, and also to talk about why it's of value. And I just, family locket, the family heirloom, it has sentimental value, things like that. But I noticed another mistake I made, that when I saw my results, it was written there, is that another thing you need to do is also, in a bid to try and please the examiner, you also need to listen carefully and comprehend what the person is saying. Because there was a time she asked me that what other thing do you think families place importance on, or what other things do you think family? And I was like, wedding gown now, that they passed down wedding gown. And she herself now said, don't you think photos are important? So I was like, oh yes, I agree, families are important, but I added extra. It's always good to add extra, not just give single answers, yes,
big
no,
answers.
yes. Yes, so so I was, when she said, don't you think family photos are also important? I was like, yes, definitely, they are very important, because family important, and for family albums are a way of you to, they are a way of you to remember the good old times you spent with your family, and also remember those times even in the present time. So it's like you just have to keep on talking. Yes, for the part one, you need to be short and quick, but for your part two, where they say 2 minutes, you need to continue talking till you get to that 2 minutes. Don't just talk and just, yeah, so I finish, and be expecting the examiner to be like, let them be the one to say, okay, that's okay.
Yes.
So it will be good for you to practice on different scenarios, so that you already have an idea of the range of things you can say, that you would want to say. And for the speaking part, well, I don't know if it's for every question. For me, she just continued from the part two. Okay, so what other things, apart from the family album and the wedding gown you talked about, what other things do people? So it felt like it felt to me, it felt like I didn't really understand what she was asking me, because she kept on asking it in different ways. Or maybe it was just God's favor for me, or maybe I don't know. But she kept on asking me the same thing in different ways. But that's the exam in general. You just need to keep calm. It will be good, at least for the reading, it will be good you have someone to assess your essays, because what you may think is, sorry, what to say?
For writing, you were saying it in the reading.
Yes.
You meant for writing.
Sorry, for the writing. Yes, I'm sorry, for the writing. It's good you have someone to assess your essays, because I felt like, okay, I'd written something until I forwarded to Banke, and she was like, this, no, another, wow, this much errors. But everything she told me, it was really helpful. I won't lie to you guys, it was really helpful. At least those extra things. Well, if I'd gone to that exam without any assistance, I probably would have done well in the listening and reading. But with our extra tips, I did better. With our tips, and those were helpful.
And you build it
Same
up.
with the reading.
In the listening, can you tell us what you had across all the modules?
Okay, so for the listening, I had 9. For the reading, I had 9 also. And I had 7.5 in both the writing and the speaking. So overall 8.5.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
Thank you very much.
The remaining
Thank you.
couple of minutes will be dedicated to you who is present in class, in this live class, to ask questions. This is someone who wrote the examination once, and she aced it at first attempt, blasting the listening and the writing and the reading and the speaking. So for you, you may have different challenges in any of the modules. You should ask your questions now, and let me take your questions. Sheun will be willing to answer. If you have questions, just raise your hand and unmute, then go ahead and ask your questions. So before I take any of your questions, let me ask Sheun, how did you hear about the free online classes?
Well, it was a friend that sent the link to me, actually. She was the IELTS exam, and she sent me materials. Then she also sent me the link. I don't know how she got to hear about it, but she sent me the link.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Dami has a question. Dami, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay, good evening.
4 minutes.
Thank you so much. This has been really helpful. I just wanted to clarify. So the bit where Sheon said, when for the listening, or does this apply to everybody? You said that there's going to be moments where they tell you to pause or something. So you're saying that it's important to go to the questions first, right? Even before Is that just, does that apply just to the listening? So like it's a tip to say that when you have your, I mean, when you're about starting, the first thing you should do is go and read the questions. Is that specifically for this listening? I mean, so that you can know, the
Well,
things you are looking out for when they are speaking. Right?
for the listening test, there are 4
Yes.
sections. There's section 1, 2, 3, and 4. Before every section, there's a pause. So when the audio starts, they will tell you this is the listening test for IELTS, blah, 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 blah. There are 4 section sheets. So now, section 1, that you have it. Then when the examiner that is speaking tells you to go to section 1, you have, I'm not sure how long it is exactly, maybe it's 30 seconds, a minute, I'm not sure. So you have, even the audio will tell you have a few minutes to go through questions 1 to 3 or question 1 to 5, depending on how the questions are structured. So that pause that you are given in the audio, use it to look at the questions and underline it. You can write in the question sheet. So underline the key words that are there, and then words just before if is fill in the gap questions. So there are some of those questions that there are specific words before the answer that, okay, once you hear this, that means the next thing is the answer. So all those things, you underline them.
Great. Great.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I hope your question is answered.
Yes, it is. It is.
Anyone else wants to ask questions? So I hope Sheol has been able to disprove that myth that it is not possible to ace IELTS once. I wish I knew me when I first took the examination, and that is why I'm so passionate about giving these classes even for free. And if you decide to opt in for the VIP class, just like Sheon said, it's absolutely your call. It's not compulsory. But you see, most times people don't take the free classes seriously, and so they do not get the most of it, right? So now, Sheon, before you wrote the examination, what were some of the things you heard about the examination, and how were you able to move past your fears?
Well, I heard that the main thing that I had, at least I had friends that had been on this exam, and they said the writing was always the issue. Different things, they don't have enough time, they can't come up with ideas, that you may not be able to pass it once. Like, I was like, where I felt I was lacking, because I started preparing from January. So I started, practicing listening, in those Cambridge books. So I used them. So I did both the general and the academic for the reading, you get. So, but I felt I was lacking in writing. So I was like, it won't kill me to ask for assistance. So that was my main reason for signing up for a private class, because of the writing. Not necessarily because of the others, but because of the writing. Or even the others too. I was able to get an extra advantage in those places.
All right.
Sorry, please, I have one more question. I'm really sorry. I'm not
Yeah.
Was it paper based, or you wrote like this essay,
No
the
problem.
writing part and all of that? Do you write?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did the paper base, although they say computer base is available now, but I did the paper base.
So you can choose. You can choose which one.
Okay, so it's your call.
Base, your results are released shorter.
There are paper-based tests and there are computer-based tests. So it's your call. If you are computer savvy, if you, for example, someone who doesn't have a good handwriting can opt for the computer-based test. Okay, so that's it for today. I will upload this meeting on the YouTube channel, IELTS-Banke, the professional teacher. Kindly subscribe to the channel and share as far as possible so that others can learn too and know that it is possible to ace IELTS once and for all. Thank you, Sheung, for taking time off your busy schedule to
Thank you very much.
share with you guys. Thank you all for coming. I hope you have learned something valuable, and I hope you go ahead to ace your test once and for all. So the meeting is now ended. Cheers, everyone.